Have you ever stopped to wonder what it truly means to age gracefully and with purpose? It's not just about the physical signs, gray hair, wrinkles, or slower steps, but about the profound changes that occur deep within your soul. As we grow older, we face emotions we might never have encountered before. Loneliness, loss, and the realization that time is slipping away faster than we imagined. Perhaps the most daunting part of aging isn't the process itself, but the fear of growing old without finding peace and meaning in the twilight years. Youth is often a time of endless dreams and limitless ambitions. When we are young, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, work, family, responsibilities, leaving little room for reflection. But time is a silent thief moving forward without pause, and one day, we wake up to find that life has changed. The once vibrant days filled with laughter, activity, and purpose are now replaced by quiet moments in an empty home. You begin to wonder, what happens if I end up alone? How do I continue to live meaningfully when everything familiar seems to have drifted away? Meet Jack Thompson, a 62-year-old man who has experienced both the joys and heartaches that come with aging. Jack isn't a celebrity or a wealthy tycoon. He's just an ordinary man living in a modest home, holding on to the precious memories of his family and the life he once knew. Yet his story has the power to resonate deeply with anyone who is or will one day face the challenges of growing older. It's a tale of pain that words struggle to convey, but also one of renewal, of how a man found light even in the darkest corners of his life. A few years ago, Jack lived a happy life with his family. He and his wife, Mary, had weathered life's storms together, building a home from scratch and raising two children, Emily and Adam, whom they loved deeply. The children grew up to become Jack's greatest pride. But life doesn't always go as planned. When Mary passed away after a long battle with illness, Jack found himself plunged into a void that seemed impossible to fill. Losing his partner of over 30 years felt like losing a part of himself. At first, Jack's children visited frequently. Emily and Adam, now with families of their own, tried to juggle their busy lives while making time for their father. They cared for him, but as time passed, their visits became less frequent. Jack began to feel a profound loneliness that he couldn't shake. He missed the lively dinners with the whole family, the joyous sound of his grandchildren playing, and the warm, comforting nights when the house was alive with conversation and laughter. Now, that house was silent, an oppressive silence that seemed to grow heavier each day. One afternoon, Jack sat in his small living room, sunlight streaming through the window, casting soft shadows on the floor. He stared out into the garden that he and Mary had lovingly tended together. The flowers she adored still bloomed, but to Jack they seemed to lack their former vitality. The ringing of the phone broke his thoughts. It was Adam. "Dad, I'm sorry, but I can't come by today. There's an urgent meeting. I'll call you later," Adam said hurriedly before hanging up. Jack placed the phone back on the table, a wave of disappointment washing over him. He understood Adam's busy life but couldn't help feeling left behind. Once he had been the anchor of his family, the person everyone turned to for guidance and support. Now he was alone, living in a house far too big for just one person. Jack didn't blame his children. He loved them and wanted them to be happy. But the loneliness remained, a quiet fire burning in his heart. On another day, Emily stopped by with her young son, carrying a basket of Jack's favorite pastries. But her visit was brief. "Dad, I can only stay a little while. I have to pick Tom up from school," Emily explained, glancing at the clock repeatedly. Jack forced a smile, reassuring her that he was fine. But when Emily and her son left, the house felt emptier than ever. Jack stood at the door watching their car disappear down the street. His heart grew heavier, his toes weighed down not only by solitude but also by the helplessness of feeling like a burden to the ones he loved most. Jack knew he wasn't alone in feeling this way. Many of his peers, neighbors, and friends shared similar experiences. They spoke of children who loved them but couldn't visit often, of days spent reminiscing about the past, and of nights when silence became almost unbearable. Some of Jack's friends had moved into nursing homes, hoping to find companionship and understanding among others in similar situations. Yet, Jack couldn't bring himself to leave the house he had built with Mary, filled with memories of their life together. One day, Jack's neighbor, John, knocked on his door and invited him for a walk in the nearby park. John, a man of the same age, had lost his wife years earlier and had also wrestled with the loneliness of old age. "Jack," John said as they sat on a park bench, "I've learned something important. At our age, if we don't actively seek out meaning and joy, loneliness will consume us." John's words struck a chord with Jack, awakening a realization he had been avoiding. That moment marked the beginning of a shift in Jack's perspective. He understood that change wouldn't come on its own, he had to take action. He started small, going for morning walks in the park, striking up conversations with strangers, and attending community events. Slowly but surely, Jack began to see life differently. While he couldn't bring back the past or replace the loss of Mary, he could build a new life filled with purpose and connection. David was once a strong man, the rock of his family. He married Susan, the woman he fell in love with at first sight when they were both young and ambitious. Together, they built a home full of love, where laughter and joy echoed through every mealtime and family gathering. Their 2 children, Jacob and Emily, were David's greatest pride, the living proof of his relentless efforts and sacrifices over the years. David was a skilled carpenter. He didn't just make furniture, he poured his heart into every detail, transforming ordinary materials into works of art. Chairs, tables, and cabinets weren't merely functional items but masterpieces that carried his soul and precision. While his work brought him satisfaction, his true fulfillment came from his family. Every day, David eagerly returned home to a warm dinner prepared by Susan and stories from the kids about their daily adventures. But life often doesn't go as planned. Susan was diagnosed with a terminal illness. In the last 2 years of her life, David devoted himself entirely to caring for her, hoping she would pull through. But despite his unwavering dedication, Susan passed away, leaving a void in David's heart that seemed impossible to fill. The day she died, David's world came crashing down. He lost not just his wife, but also his confidant and partner, who had been by his side through every challenge in life. After Susan's death, everything changed for David. He no longer felt like himself, and life no longer held the same meaning it once did. While Jacob and Emily visited frequently at first, they had their own lives, jobs, and families. The visits gradually became less frequent. The house, once filled with the joyful noise of grandchildren playing, became increasingly silent. Every time his children left, David felt the weight of loneliness creeping in like a shadow. David began to realize that loneliness wasn't just a state of being, but a feeling that slowly ate away at his soul. Mornings in the quiet house became difficult. There was no Susan to ask whether he wanted tea or coffee, no footsteps echoing in the kitchen as she prepared breakfast. The kitchen, once vibrant and alive, now felt like an empty space. Eating meals alone made David feel like he had lost a vital piece of his life's essence. One quiet afternoon, David was sitting in a wooden chair on his porch, gazing at the garden he and Susan had lovingly tended together. The flowers Susan adored still bloomed, but to David, they seemed to lack their former vibrancy. His neighbor, Margaret, stopped by. Margaret, a middle-aged woman who lived alone, radiated an incredible sense of optimism despite her circumstances. "David," she began, her voice warm and understanding, "have you ever thought that we can't live in memories forever? Loss is never easy, but I've learned to find joy in the little things." Margaret's words lingered in David's mind throughout the evening. She was right. Although Susan was no longer there, the memories of her were alive in his heart. That didn't mean he had to stop living. David knew he needed to step out of his comfort zone, so he decided to join a senior community club at a nearby center. At the center, David met new friends, each carrying their own story. He connected with John, a retired teacher known for his witty stories and sharp intellect. Then there was Rose, a 70-year-old woman with a love for dancing who still moved with the grace of her youth. David discovered that everyone at the club had faced loss, yet they had all found ways to embrace life rather than let grief define them. Every morning, David began walking in the park. For the first time in years, he noticed the little things he had previously overlooked. Sunlight filtering through the trees, the cheerful songs of birds, and children laughing as they ran around. These simple moments brought him a sense of peace that he hadn't felt in a long time. One day, as he sat on a park bench, David met Sophie, a young woman in her mid-20s, conducting research on the psychological effects of loneliness among the elderly. Sophie asked if she could interview David for her project. Their conversations soon became more than just research sessions. Sophie became a friend and a source of encouragement, helping David realize that even at his age, he could still contribute meaningfully to others. David also began journaling, a habit he picked up from Susan. In his journal, he recorded memories of her, lessons from his children, and the new emotions he experienced as he emerged from the shadow of loneliness. Writing became a therapeutic outlet, allowing him to connect deeply with his own thoughts and feelings. Gradually, David's life began to take on new colors. He enrolled in cooking classes, partly to experiment with recipes Susan had loved, and partly to make new friends. The people he met in these classes became cherished companions, bringing warmth and joy back into his life that he thought was lost forever. One day, Emily and Jacob visited their father. They were surprised to see him smiling more, looking healthier and more energetic than before. "Dad, you look different lately. How are you doing?" Jacob asked, both curious and delighted. David smiled, his eyes filled with newfound hope. "I've learned to find joy in small things," he said. "I don't want to live in the past anymore. Life at any age can be meaningful if we choose to see it that way." David's story isn't just about overcoming loss, but also about the resilience of the human spirit. He turned pain into motivation, rebuilding his life, not just for himself, but as an inspiration for those around him. He realized that growing older isn't the end, it's a new chapter, a time to find simplicity and profound meaning in everyday moments. Looking back, David no longer felt regret. He knew Susan would always remain in his heart, and the memories of her would continue to inspire him to live fully. Growing old, David told John during one of their meetings, isn't an end. It's an opportunity to begin again in a different way. David's story teaches us one profound truth. It is never too late to start over, to find happiness, even when life seems to have run dry of joy. Growing older is not merely an end, it is an opportunity, a chance to explore new values, forge new connections, and live with deeper meaning and purpose. Life has a way of surprising us, often in the moments we least expect. For David, the loss of Susan felt like the end of the road, but it became the beginning of a new journey. Through his grief, he discovered the importance of embracing change, stepping out of his comfort zone, and finding joy in the simplest of things. His transformation reminds us that no matter our age or circumstances, there is always room to grow, to heal, and to create a fulfilling life. One of the most powerful lessons from David's story is the value of human connection. In his darkest moments, he realized that isolation only deepens our pain, but reaching out can bring light back into our lives. Whether it was his neighbor Margaret, the friends he made at the senior center, or the young researcher Sophie, every connection helped David reclaim a part of himself he thought was lost. These relationships became the threads that wove his life back together, reminding him that we are never truly alone as long as we remain open to others. David's decision to embrace his later years wasn't just about filling his days with activities, it was about reclaiming a sense of purpose. By journaling, cooking, and engaging with his community, he rediscovered what it meant to live meaningfully. These small but deliberate actions remind us that purpose doesn't have to be grand or extraordinary. It can be found in the simplest acts, like sharing a meal, writing down our thoughts, or lending a listening ear to someone in need. For many of us, the thought of growing older can be daunting. We fear the changes it brings, the loss of loved ones, the diminishing of physical strength, and the sense of being left behind in a world that seems to move on without us. But David's journey shows us that aging is not something to be feared. Instead, it can be a time of reflection, growth, and rediscovery. It is a chance to let go of what no longer serves us, to cherish the memories that shaped us, and to create new ones that will continue to bring us joy. David's story also highlights the resilience of the human spirit. Even in the face of profound loss, he found the strength to move forward. His journey was not without struggles, but each challenge became an opportunity to learn and grow. Through his perseverance, he discovered that healing is not about forgetting the past, but about finding a way to carry it with us as we move into the future. As we reflect on David's story, it's impossible not to see parallels in our own lives. Perhaps you too have experienced loss or loneliness. Maybe you found yourself standing at a crossroads, unsure of how to move forward. If so, let David's journey inspire you to take that first step, no matter how small, toward a brighter, more fulfilling life. Remember, it's never too late to rewrite your story. If this story resonates with you, take a moment to share it with someone you care about. Sometimes, a simple story can spark a profound change in someone's perspective. It can remind them that they are not alone, that there is always hope, and that life, no matter how challenging, is always worth living. And if you found value in David's journey, consider joining us here on Life Stories 365. Our channel is dedicated to sharing heartfelt, meaningful stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us of the beauty of the human experience. By subscribing, you'll become part of a community that celebrates life's lessons, its challenges, and its triumphs. Together, we can learn from these stories, find strength in each other, and continue to grow, no matter where we are in life. As you go about your day, carry with you the lessons from David's story. Embrace change, seek connections, and find joy in the little things. Reach out to a friend, call a loved one, or take a moment to reflect on the blessings in your life. These small acts can make a world of difference, not just for you, but for those around you. Life is a journey filled with twists and turns, but it is also a journey rich with opportunities to grow, love, and discover. No matter your age, background, or circumstances, know that you have the strength within you to face whatever challenges come your way. You have the power to create a life filled with meaning and joy, just as David did. So as this story comes to a close, let it serve as a gentle reminder. Life's most precious moments are often found in the simplest of things: a kind word, a shared laugh, or a quiet moment of reflection. Cherish these moments and let them guide you toward a life well lived. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story has touched your heart, we encourage you to leave a comment, share your thoughts, or simply let us know how it resonated with you. Your voice is important, and your story matters. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories 365. Together, let's continue to explore the stories that shape us, inspire us, and remind us of the incredible strength of the human spirit. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you soon.